first thing we're going to do is remove the front wheels and tires. Next, we're going to disconnect the tie rod from the knuckle and the inner ball and socket. Our machine's equipped with SuperATV's heavy-duty tie rods, but the same principles apply for factory tie rods. We're going to come in here and we're going to put a wrench on the inner ball and socket, or the inner tie rod. We're going to take our jam nut loose. Once you have the jam nut loose, go ahead and thread the tie rod off of the inner tie rod. Then for the driver's side, you're only going to want to remove your tie rod end from the knuckle. Next, we're going to remove the rack and pinion from the machine. And there you're going to have 2 short bolts on the passenger side, and then 3 long bolts that'll go through here on the driver's side as well. Disconnect the steering shaft from the rack and pinion, and then remove the rack and pinion. Next, we're going to be centering our rack. So we're going to go ahead and get our boots off. Just going to have to remove the nuts from the inner tie rods there. Just going to want to twist and pull on these, and they will just slide right out. We just want to set them aside for the time being. And the next step is going to be to take a measurement from the face of the housing right here to the face of the inner ball and socket. So there's a few different ways to rotate your rack and pinion. The best way to do it is to have a steering shaft to put on the splines here and turn it. But we understand that not everybody's gonna have a steering shaft laying around. So what you can do, you can put this back on here and very gently take a pair of vice grips, and you're going to want to clamp it. And you're not going to want to clamp it real tight because you don't want to damage the splines there, but just enough. See right there, it pinches it down, and you can turn your rack. So what we're going to do, we're just going to rotate the rack as far as it'll go. Looks like that's all we got right there. So we're going to take our measurement from here to here. We have a measuring scale that we're using today. If you all can see that, it looks like it's at 110 millimeters there. So what we're going to do, we're going to take 110 divided by 2, whatever that number is. We're going to turn the rack all the way back in until we get it to that center point, and then we'll go to the opposite side and confirm our measurement. So we rotated our rack and pinion back to the point where it was half of 110 millimeters, which is 55. So we got 55 on this side. And then on this side, you're going to measure it a little bit differently. As you can see, if you were to measure here, your measurement's going to be way off. You're going to have to stick your measuring scale inside of the rack as far as it'll go to the housing. And then you're just going to measure to the face again of the inner ball and socket. So it looks like we're at 55 on this side and 55 on that side. That means our rack is good and centered. We're going to go ahead and take our cap off here. We're going to grab a paint marker, and we're going to mark it in a location where the shaft is visible as well as the rack is visible. That way, while it's in the machine, we can most definitely see it from any angle that we have to look in there at. So we're going to mark it right about here. It should be pretty visible. We're just going to run a big line all the way up. That's good. We're going to be able to see that whenever we get it installed in the machine. The next step is going to be to install the steering stops. If you'd like to, the customer we're installing this rack and pinion for today, they want the steering stops, so we're going to go ahead and install them. We're just going to take one and then press it down onto the shaft of the rack, and you'll want to do that for both sides. Just going to press it down on this side as well, just make sure it's good and fully seated. So we've got those on there. Now we're going to go ahead and take our boots and reinstall them. It's easier to do it here on the bench than do it while the rack's in the machine. That steering stop, sometimes you'll have to work your boot over top of it. Then you're just going to want to spin the boot around until it gets all the way up there. So we have that one fully seated. We're going to go ahead and grab our provided zip ties, and you want to fully tighten that. We'll do the same exact thing for the opposite side, and whenever you're done putting your boots on, you want to go back through and make sure that your rack is still centered. That is super crucial. Make sure your steering wheel is centered. Now that we have our steering wheel centered, we're going to go ahead and install our new heavy-duty rack and pinion. As you slide it in there, you're going to want to get it lined up with the steering shaft. And again, you're going to want to make sure that your rack is still centered. Now that we have it started on there, we're going to hop back inside and make sure that the steering wheel did not move. So it looks like our steering wheel is still straight. So now we're going to go ahead and grab our hardware kit. The long bolts will go in the same location that the long bolts came out of on your factory rack. So they're going to all be right here on the driver's side, on the center portion of the rack. And then the two short bolts are going to be on the passenger side on the bracket. Next, we're going to grab our tie rods and install them to our inner ball and socket. You'll just want to thread these up, about halfway, because we're going to have to set the toe now that we've taken the tie rods off. Next, we're going to grab our tie rod ends and install them to our tie rod, making sure the textured side of it is facing outward. We're going to want to thread this in as well as the tie rod onto the inner ball and socket until it lines up with our knuckle, or in our instance, our backing plate, because we're running some GDP portals on this machine. Looks like we're pretty well lined up, so we're going to go ahead and grab our misalignment bushings out of the hardware pack. Pop them in just like this. And we're going to grab our provided bolts. Drop them through there. Looks like we need to do a little bit more adjusting here. Then we're going to repeat the steps for the opposite side. Next, we're going to put our castle nut on our bolt. We're running GDP portals today, so for our backing plate, we're going to use a nylock nut. For any other application, you would just use the castle nut. Once that's on there, we're going to go ahead and fully tighten it. And again, if you are using a castle nut, you will want to install the cotter pin once you have this fully tightened. Repeat the steps for the opposite side. Then we're going to go through and make sure that all of our hardware was previously installed is tight. You're going to leave your jam nuts loose, and then you're going to install your wheels and tires, and we're going to set the toe. We have Christian here helping us. So we're going to put our tape measure on the front of the tires, on the center line of the tire, and we're going to make sure that our measurement in the front is exactly the same as the measurement in the rear. Looks like we have 57 1/4 here in the front. Now we're going to go to the rear portion of the front tire. Do the same exact thing. And it looks like our measurement's exactly the same in the rear of the tire. So we're good to go. We're going to go ahead and lock down our jam nuts. If you were to need to make any adjustments, you're just going to grab your tie rod. And because we're running SuperATV's heavy duty double adjustable tie rods, all you'd have to do is just turn it one way or the other to get your tire to toe in or toe out to make sure your measurement's the same. And that's how super easy it is to install SuperATV's heavy duty rack and pinion on a Polaris Ranger 900. For more information on this rack and pinion or any of SuperATV's great products, give us a call at 855-743-3427 or check us out online at superatv.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.